Today I am recreating an original meat recipe from 1717. I am using the historical methods that were used back then. And afterwards I will taste and rate this meat here in this video. It all starts with the idea of reawakening a forgotten taste. I start by searching for the right recipe and decided on a recipe from 717 from the cookbook The Accomplishment Housekeeper and Universal Cook, one of the most popular cookbooks of the time. There are two sections of our recipe. I will read the first part first and then I will put this into practice before we get to the second part. Mead wine. There are being several sorts of mead wines. It will be necessary to mention 3 of them separately. We will be looking at the first of the 3 today. White or suck meat is made in the following manner. Put a gallon of the best honey to every 5 gallons of water. Set it on fire and boil it well, 1 hour, remembering to skim it well. That is exactly what we're doing now. Here's our pot, which should hold exactly a half of the recipe. So we simply divide the recipe by 2 and take the half of everything. Plus a matching fermentation container of the time, which I will talk more about later. And the best honey. I have here fresh forest honey directly from the local beekeeper. I assume that is roughly equivalent to the best honey. It is very strong honey and spices are also ready for later. Today we are working with the volume machinery, which is very uncommon for a European, but that is how it is in the recipe. So let us do the same way. This cup here is from the Purzelbaum. This is a play on the words in German and means somersault. In the same manner, it means like a tree that somersaults over the top by himself. Zum Purzelbaum belongs to the channel. More about this in another video. The cup holds a quarter gallon and I will now dump 10 of them into the pot. Some of the water is already in, but I would like to add the honey first before I finish the water. I have already measured the honey and then I weighed it. For those who are interested, it is about 105 ounces or 6.6 pounds of honey to about 9.5 liters of water. I take out every drop of honey and with a spoon I can scrape it out a bit so that the honey loose minimized. The pot is full. Both the honey and the water are in it, and I was really lucky that it fits. It shouldn't have been any more. We will now boil it up. I proceed as follows for the fire. I take some wood, some coal and some straw and light it. The wood burns a little bit better in the beginning, but later the coal provides a constant temperature. That is why I only add coal later on. This allows me to control an even temperature for the large boiler. Parallel to the fire, which is now slowly getting bigger and slowly bringing the kettle up to temperature, we are already working on the other step that will be neat when it is finished. The first step. The recipe says so. Then take it off the fire and set it by to cool. Take 2 or 3 raisins of ginger, a stick of cinnamon and 2 nutmegs. Puree these a little, put them into a Holland bag and let them stand in the hot liquor till it is nearly cold. I have already prepared a large piece of ginger and the other spices. And the Holland bag is a bag that we can close well so that we can easily get the spices out again. This bag should stay in the meat for the whole time it is cooling. And because we only using the half of the recipe, we only use the half of the spices. Now the first patient time of the recipe begins, because we have our kettle here, which is heat slowly. And it will slowly start to form, but it still doesn't boil. And we keeping stirring it slowly and constantly, so that it doesn't burn. The meat is finally boiling, as you can see. Now I can slowly skim off the foam while stirring the meat. It should now boil for the total of 1 hour, which I will do now. I will measure this with a normal modern clock. Do you have any ideas on how people used measuring times in the 18th and 19th century, especially in the early American frontiers time when they are cooking and baking? Write them in the comments, then I will see what can I recreate and try out and show you on this YouTube channel. And I can also use this method for other videos in the future, when I try out other recipes from the time of the American frontiers and settlers, so that you not only get recipes from this time, but really the entire tools, including time measurements, as it took place then. It has now cooked on the fire for 1 hour and I can take it down. I use thick cloths because of the heat. I put it on the table and make sure that the kettle is really on the stone slabs, which I have prepared for this, because I don't want to damage the table. Now I take the spice bag and throw it in the meat. It is the one I have just put together exactly I have shown, and press it down with a wood spoon, so that it is really in the meat from all sides. Now the bag can stay in the meat until everything is cooled down, just like in the recipe says. What I find amazing is how much water is evaporated on 1 hour of cooking. That must be 4 or more liters of water, or in American system more than 1 gallon of water. I didn't expect this much, more like a liter. And so the percentage of honey was increased again. That the honey content is now over 1/3 by weight of honey back in the meat. I was really surprised that there was so much strong outflow. And for anyone hearing it for the first time, there is a rule of the thumb when making meat. At least 1/3 must be honey. This is a basically common practice and has been since the time of the German tribes and the old Egyptians. Now we have fun with the yeast. It used to be something different. Either you had a fermentation in process and you took a part of it and used it, or you went to a local brewer and got a bottle of active yeast from him. But you most like brewer's yeast for this recipe. That reminds me, I would also like to brew a beer from the 18th using the same methods. If you don't want to miss out something like this, you can now subscribe to this YouTube channel and support me with it. For the yeast I now use this mug here with exactly 28.2 degrees Celsius warm water in it. That's because there are different ale yeasts. I'm testing a lot of different yeast and I'm hoping this one might be a good replacement for the one of the historical yeasts. However, you could also use any other brewer yeast if you want to recreate this recipe. And this special yeast needs to be activated at a certain temperature. I have already used some of this yeast, but also I have saved a little bit of this yeast for another batch. Now I carefully press this yeast underwater so that it's activated more quickly. And then I leave the yeast to stand alone for at least a half an hour. You can take a look here. The yeast forms lumps, but this is normal. The yeast now does everything else itself. The yeast is ready and the meat is already cooled down very fast. It still needs to cool a little bit, but it can still do this in the fermenting vessel. I now read out the rest of the recipe. Then put as much ale yeast to it as will making it work. Keep it in a warm place as they do ale, and when it has worked well, put it in a cask that will just hold it. In 2 or 3 months you maybe bottle it off, cork it well and keep it for use. We have to do it now and pour the meat into the vessel. Then it can continue to cool down in there, which can take another 1 or 2 hours, until the yeast and the meat have reached the same temperature. The spices remain in the pot and are not transferred. Oh, you see this beautiful color? I'm going to pour it out here, bit by bit. Today I ferment this meat in a barrel made of clay. There were actually 3 typical methods. Each also affects the taste differently. Either a wood barrel, which I show in one of the next videos, or a glass barrel, or like here in a clay jug. Clay was the most widely used because it was cheap, available everywhere and quick to produce. And I had this one specially made by a potter, according to the examples of the time, so that we can use it here. We are about to start the tasting, but first the meat has to ferment. To do this, I put it in a corner where it can stay for a long time without being moved and where we have constant temperatures over the whole time. And now this is incredible here, the whole room smells of forest honey. The yeast is now here and has formed small bubbles, which shows it is now active. It is all in here now. That's enough and nothing more needs to be done. The batch is now sealed. The lid now had a special feature. It fits exactly into the hollow and I can now drop water into it so that it's sealed and the resulting CO2 can escape, but nothing can penetrate the meat. Before I can start tasting the finished meat, I had to shake the water level every day until the meat was ready. Because the water evaporated very quickly from this water spare, I had to refill almost daily for a month. The meat is ready and I can talk a little bit about the taste, and I want to describe it so good I can for you, how it tastes. This is a really incredible meat. In the end I had a few bottles and I think it's the 3rd bottle now that I'm drinking from this, and I can now talk and describe a little bit this meat. About the fermenting, I never will use this fermenting vessel again. I had a big problem with them. I need to put water on the top every 1 or 2 days. It is too much. And I will find another solution for the future, or I ferment in wood. That's also what I do. And yes, let's open the bottle. It's incredible meat. I produced over 150 meats in my life now, and this is really different, like every modern recipe. Here again a little cup with a Purzelbaum on top. I have let it produce for me. If you want to drink meat like an expert, it's very easy. you divided it by smelling, tasting in the mouth, and what is after, what is the feelings about this. And with this you can describe a meat very good. This is what I try to do. It is like the forest honey is very incredible strong, but also to have like a little bit sour in the smelling, and a lot of herbs. I can't describe it so easily. It is like really herb-full smelling, and it's very interesting, and also a lot of sweetness. Let's taste. This meat is incredible. Every time I taste it, it is sweet. And the first thing, it is more like a little bit like a beer. It is like honey, sweet. It's oily. The feeling of the mouth is oily, but also it is soft, smooth to drink, and then this taste of sweetness and a little bit sour. I think it came maybe from the ingwer, and I can't really say I find the nutmeg and the cinnamon in this taste, but it's also very special. And one big taste is like a note like beer. I think this is from the yeast. This is really, really an interesting taste. And this is so different like everything else I ever produced in my fermenting career. And if I get ever the chance to make this meat again, I will take the same recipe. In the future I want to do other recipes of this time period, but this is a really, really interesting, incredible meat. Today in my outdoor kitchen I show you how to make an 18th century sherry pie. A very easy recipe, everyone can do this at home too. And the recipe came from the cookbook The Art of Cookery von Hannah Klaas. My most famous video, the Mead, is from the same outdoor cookbook, and this cookbook came several times and they added a lot of recipe time by time. And I think the sherry pie came more like 747 in this cookbook after my research. And the recipe sounds like to make a sherry pie. Make a good crust, lay a little round the side of your dish. Throw sugar on the bottom and lay your fruit and sugar at top. A few red currants does well with them. Put on your lid and bake them in a slack oven. Make a plum pie in the same way in the gooseberry pie. It sounds very easy, let's go. In the first step, I prepare the cherries. It is not written in the recipe that you need to stone them. You can also make the sherry pie with the stones, but the other thing is you can take them out, and my kids, they want to eat the cake today. They prefer to eat without stones, and this is what I do. And also the stones are stuff that was usable back then in the 18th century. This is why I collect them, and later I put them on the grass. The ants will come and eat the cherry flesh from the stone, and they are clean in 1 week. And then I will collect all the stones again, dry them and store them, and in the later video I will show what I can do with all the stones. Nun come the dough in the dish. This is a very easy pie crust from the 18th century, how I showed this in an own video how to do this. To remember, 6 ounces of butter to 12 ounces of flour with a little bit salt and some teaspoons of water. Mix together until it is a good dough. I make sure the crust is good in the dish and I cut off what is too much. Then the first layer is sugar. I use grounded sugar, but normal sugar function also. On top of the sugar came the stoneless cherries. And after the cherries, sugar again. And on the end come crust on top again. I make sure that it's very close everywhere. Now smithing the vending hole, I cut them in. With the leftover dough, I make some decorations for the pie that they look more beautiful on the end. I have decided to make leaves because this is very easy. And I lay the finished leaves on the top of the pie. Now the finished pie needs to go in the oven. Until today I have no oven in this garden, and this is why I use a Dutch oven. And I have prepared already something. I use coal. Why? It is very hard to control the temperature with fire really well. And I have not enough experience, but I want to have a good cake on the end of the day. And this is why I use coal. And by using a Dutch oven, it is more like the hull, the 1/3 of the coal need under the Dutch oven and 2/3 on top. This is what I do now, that I have a good amount of heat in the oven on the end. The cake is finished. It was over 1 hour and now they need to cool down. And for this I take my kitchen clothes, I have one, and put them on top because I'm outside, that they can cool down. Yes, there is a lot of fluid in the cake, and I think it is because I stoned the cherry. But it is a really tasty for this. The flavor of the cherries come through, and the cherries are very soft. Perfect. Sweet, not too sweet. This was what I think, maybe the cake is too sweet with so much sugar, but it's perfect. And then the crust. The crust is so tasteful together. I think what I'm missing is cream. And there is a lot of historical cream recipes, not just cream with lemon, with lemon peel, with orange flower, with strawberries. I will do one day something of this on this YouTube channel. And this will be a perfect part through this dish. And I think you can try it at home. It's very easy. Hi, I'm Joshua and today I'm doing a strawberry jam. A very easy recipe. But there is a little bit special because I make a reenacting of the 17th, 18th century and want to bring this flavor of this time back. Because of this, I cook everything over fire and I don't have a modern glass. I have a stone jar, how the people have back then. In the recipe, very similar, you find in many recipe books. But the special thing on this recipe, this is my family recipe. It goes over, I don't know how many generations in our family, and we do this like this. The recipe sounds: take 3 pounds of strawberries, 3 pounds of sugar and the juice of 1 lemon. Put all together and cook them in a pot. Cook them for 50 minutes. Then fill it up in jars and store it until you will use it. This is a very easy recipe, isn't it? First, I harvest my own strawberries and then I cut them down. I don't wash them because if you wash strawberries, you lose a little bit of the taste. I just brush them clean with everything what I do. Also, I take the sugar, then I squeeze the lemon in its own pot to take out the little things that I don't want to have in the marmalade, and then I put everything together over the fire. Cook them for 50 minutes. If you want to have the parts in the strawberry smaller, you can make it smaller now on the fire. Next to the pot on the fire, I have a second pot. There is just boiling water in the jars where I want to store my marmalade later to clear them. And when the marmalade is finished, I take them out and stand them on wood. It's important, if I step this on stone or on metal, it can be broken because the temperature different. Also very dangerous with glasses. And put in the cooking marmalade in this pot. Now we need to seal this marmalade. What I do, I take hot splatter and dip them in the hot water. They go soft, and then I put them over the jar and bind them, and that can dry. And when it is dry, the jars are sealed. This is a very easy recipe and you can do it at home. What did cherry bonbons taste like 250 years ago? To find out, I use the same techniques that were used in the past. For the last 3 years I have been trying to recreate the flavor of the 18th century, and the cherry bonbons are my first historical sweets. The recipe sounds very easy. It's just cherries and sugar. I have picked already white cherries, and before we start I talk a little bit about the recipe and read it to you. The recipe itself today came from the cookery from the Queen Anne in the 18th century, and the cookbook is from 767, a very old cookbook, and in this cookbook there is one recipe. It sounds like it will be later cherry bonbons, and I will try it out. To make cherry paste, take cherries, stone and boil them, breaking them well the while, and boil them very dry. And to a pound of cherries put 1.25 pounds of sugar. Thrift it through a hearth sieve. Let the cherries be hot when you put in the sugar. Set it on the fire till the sugar is well melted. Put it in a board pan or earthen plates. Let it stand on top of the stove till it is candied. Drop it on a glass, and when dry on one side, turn it. First I take the stones out of all of my cherries, and then I put all the cherries together in a pot over the fire and cook them. What I'm doing in the moment is to cook it dry, that more and more water go leave out, and in the same manner I try to make the parts smaller and smaller that we have on the end. The small sherry parts that we can get. And after a while of cooking, I put all my sherries and put them through a hair sieve, that all the moisture and wet going down, and I catch all the hard big stuff that I can put them away. The liquor that I collected under the hair sieve coming back in the pot and is boiling again. When the liquor are boiling, I put in all of my sugar and turn it around. It's important to move the sugar the whole time because it is very fast to burning, and if the sugar turning black or brown, it starts to be very bitter, and this is why I need to turn it the whole time and moving around that the sugar don't burn. In the same manner, more and more water go out of the mixture and the sugar is leaving alone with the taste of the sherries. Now I have cooked it over 1 hour and it have lost a lot of volume again, and now it's time to go the next step. Now we're coming to the next or last step. I am not sure that I understand the recipe right. If you understand it different like I do it now, write it down below in the comments about what you understand or how you think I should do it the next time. But I describe you what I understand and how is my solution for this. I have here a modern plate because I have no historical glass plates, and I tried this and will do this with this. This is like a earthen plate in the time back then, and I will do and take 2 plates and make little dots everywhere. That should be the bonbons or little drops, and then I leave them until tomorrow that they can dry out. And then I take a 3rd plate and I put all the rest to a big like lake on the plate that there can all together be dry out. And then we will see tomorrow what is happening with them. Close to 24 hours are gone and I have put everything inside and leaving the outside out because it's raining cats and dogs. But anywhere, our cherry paste is dried and now we want to lose them, and I have taken something special with me, this little box, and made waxed paper inside, and this is what I want to fill up with this jelly paste that I have something sweet in the future for my trips and adventures. First I want to start to lose one of the jellies, and yeah, it is very gluing and not really losing and hard how I think it would be the first time. You see this? Oh, I have an idea. I need to bring something here and find out if this functions. This is powdered sugar. How I came on the idea with powdered sugar, I have read in a German cookbook. I've forgotten in which kind, but it's not so old like the cookbook from today. If you have sticky candies or sweets, put them in powdered sugar or flour and turn it around until it is not sticky again or anymore. And this is what I want to try today. I take our little sweet and turn it around. It's not written in this recipe included to do this, but I think the idea is the same and they can do this back then too. This is what I try now, and I will make some candies like this. And this take a lot of sugar, and now it looks like Turkish honey, it is called in Germany. I think you know it maybe in America or England too. It looks like Turkish honey. Yes. And now I will put it in my box. Now we're coming to our big plate, and I was hoping to make or break it later in little parts and then use them like this, but it don't function now, and now I will make with them many little bonbons too, like I do this with the little dots. Now the most beautiful part of every video, to trying the food that I have cooked, and I will try one of them. Yes, a little bit sticky, but not too much. It's very soft. Let's try. very, very sweet, sticking between the tooth. A little bit sherry taste. It's nice, but I think I have missed out to make it harder. Maybe to cook it longer, that there is no water left inside. But this is like really a sherry paste. But if I recommend to do this again, I think I say no. Because it is tastyful, yes, flavorful, but just sugar with sherry. And there's more interesting recipes from the 18th century. There. Hi, I'm Joshua and today I'm going to show you how to pickle strawberries without boiling them. It's a lost technique from the 18th century that hardly anyone knows anymore, and I think you will be surprised how it works. Let's get started. First of all, we need a historical preserving jar. I once had this pot made especially for me, and this is what we use today. Then I start by harvesting strawberries from my garden. I only use ripe but undamaged fruits. When I harvest, I remove the green and cut them into subtle pieces. To make it look nicer later, I stick to pieces cut lengthwise. Also, I don't wash my strawberries. If you wash them, you lose a lot of taste of strawberries. Then comes the sugar. In the 18th century, sugar was mainly sold in sugar loaves, so I had to make it smaller. To do this, I first have a sugar thong and then the mortar. And the third ingredient, raisins. They are central to making everything work later. A very exciting ingredient. They are antibacterial, and this will help to keep the strawberries so that they don't spoil. I'm also hoping for a flavor enhancement from the tannins in the raisins. I like to use the property in my wines and meats. Do you know any other special features or characteristics of raisins? Write it down below in the comments. Also, I will show you how to make your own pitted raisins with a recipe from 1800 in another video later on this YouTube channel. I chop the raisins a little so that they can develop their full effect later. Now we come to the recipe itself, which says there are 3 parts by weight of strawberries to 4 parts of weight of sugar by 1 part of weight of raisins. Though it doesn't matter which weight you will use, kilos, pounds, in the end the calculation will be fine if you use parts by parts. Now comes the pickling, which is similar to pickling pork, but today we use sugar. First, we put a layer of sugar on the bottom of the container. Then a layer of strawberries, followed by a layer of raisins, and then another layer of sugar. The whole process now is repeated until the container is full to the top. Over the next few days, the sugar will throw the juice of the strawberries and turn it to a thick syrup, and those protect them from oxidation and molding. The strawberries should now be stored on a place with a very constant temperature. That was Earth mines used to before, a kind of fridge before the use of power. I will use my fridge, and you should check your strawberries from time to time and possibly sprinkling some sugar on top, especially if they are stored in a warmer place than the normal fridge. This should be able to store the strawberries for several months, even into the hard winter. I am going to try it out now, and in a few months I will use this strawberries for another recipe when the strawberry season is over. So as not to miss this recipe and what the strawberries look in some month, and you want to see it, you should subscribe this YouTube channel now. But because this is a long time away, you are very welcome to watch other videos of mine to pass this time. Today I am making a Christmas tree ornament, like the Germans immigrants in America may have done. At the beginning of the 18th century, most Christmas tree decorations were edible, and so it's quite comfortable that the recipe very popular in the New World was used. The recipe is Jumballs. This was very popular from the 16th to the 19th century. The original came from Europe, France, maybe Italy, but it was very popular in Great Britain and North America. The recipe today comes from the cookbook The Accomplished Lady's Rich Closet of Rarities from the year 1696. The original recipe reads: to make the best jumballs, take a handful or two of wheat flour and a pound of white sugar. Mix them well, adding the whites of 2 eggs and a pound of blanched almonds well beaten, with a half pound of sweet butter and a spoonful or 2 of rose water. To this add more, a half pint of cream. Mold it till it becomes a paste. Roll it into what shape you please and try it a while. Then gently bake it. On this quantity you may make 20 or more. Now I will do this recipe. Start with a large bowl and add 1½ cups of flour first and a cup of sugar. Then mix it together. Then add 4 ounces of butter and the almonds. A total amount of 8 ounces. If you want to learn more, see more recipes and techniques of the 17th and 18th centuries, then subscribe this YouTube channel. When everything is well mixed, I take 2 egg whites and beat them until foam. After the eggs, I add 1½ cup of cream. And for the flavor, 2 teaspoons of rose water. Alternative, you can also use orange blossom water to get a different flavor. And now I knead everything until I get a mass. And then I make small half-round balls, which I roll out and shape it into circles, because the shape is typical of the jumballs. Many descriptions say it should be shaped like a wreath. Both rings and 8s were not atypical. They are then baked for 15 minutes at a medium heat in a preheated oven until crispy. They are finished, and before I hang them on the Christmas tree, I want to taste one Jumballs, and it is sorry for you that you can't smell this beautiful brisket. The taste is fantastic. You can really taste the almond in this brisket. It is so tasteful, and I will hang them now on the Christmas tree. And it is just my interpretation of the Christmas tree. They hang really only eatable things on the Christmas tree. Apples and everything else. But back then they have produced these briskets the whole year if they get the ingredients. An almost 300-year-old mashed potatoes recipe appears in a Michelin guide. When I found this mashed potatoes in an old cookbook, I want to try it out straight away. And I was such surprised how this simple recipe can turn out so delicious. And now I have discovered by coincidences that the chef of the century, Joël Robuchon, who has 30 Michelin stars for his restaurants, who has a mashed potato recipe that is almost identical to the old recipe. I am about to introduce the old mashed potatoes recipe, but also I will show you the small difference to make this old recipe to one of the best mashed potatoes in the world, so that everyone can make it at home. It's hard to imagine Germany without potatoes, but originally it came from the New World. The potato wasn't cultivated in Germany until the 18th century. Other parts of Europe, as such like England and especially the Irish people, have cultivated the potatoes very early in the 7th century. In Ireland the potato was already a staple food. At the time it starts to get popular in Germany. It feels like in Germany every small town and city have its own word to describe this bulb. The common English word is potato, but in Germany we call this Kartoffel, after a Russian word. And in the common speech other words are very well known. One of them is Erdapfel. It means apple from the earth. The French use the same term, they call them pomme de terre. Another common word is a cranberry or Erdbeere. It means like pear from the ground. And very special where I came from, we called it Tüftel. I think these words came from the truffle, very well known and famous edible mushroom in Europe. I myself have started to make my own experience with the potato, because growing them is actually very simple. The potatoes are simple dug in and dug out at the harvest time. Unfortunately, my first attempts were on nutrient-poor soil, but this year it will change, and I'm looking forward to harvest a lot more potatoes in this year. Today potatoes are indispensable and extremely popular as chips and potato chips. It was something else in America at the time of the colonization. And depending when the Germans immigrate to the States, they are known or they don't know the potatoes beforehand. And during the great immigration movement in the 19th century, I think every German knows the potato. Nevertheless, I found an exciting recipe in an old cookbook, and this cookbook is from Hannah Class from 747, and the recipe says to make potato pudding. Boil 2 pounds of potatoes and beat them in a mortar fine. Beat in a half a pound of melted butter. Boil it a half an hour, pour melted butter over it with a glass of white wine or the juice of Sevilla orange, and throw sugar all over the pudding and dish. That's right, potato pudding, and I called it mash. I think this is very similar or the same, or only the words are different. Back then they called it pudding, and today we call it mash. For the recipe we need 2 pounds of potatoes, or 1 kilogram in European terms. Because our own are just ripe, I harvest our own straight from the field, peel and cook them. The recipe does not specify what type of potatoes to use. Because I like the hard boiling the most, I use this. But you could also use other types or sweet potatoes instead. I peel everything a potato before cooking. You could also cook them with the skin and peel them later. One of the nicest things I can do between the cooking is feeding my chickens with the potato skins. It always makes me happy to see them happy. The cooking itself takes about 20 minutes to a half an hour. Of course, I do this over fire. About 10 minutes before the potatoes are ready, I take the pan and place it on the pot. This way it is already hot. I do this to save energy and firewood, because the steam is enough to heat the pan. In this way I don't have to make a second fire. I simply place the pan on the top of the pot and add a half a pound of butter, which is 250 grams, to melt it. I would like to mention that the recipe properly refers to salted butter. At this time it was the only butter that is normally available. Just remember me to make a video about how to make butter. Can be also very exciting. And if you want to know this or other recipes or other techniques how the first settlers lived in America from the perspective of the German immigrants, then subscribe to this YouTube channel. This supports the next projects. And if you want to support more this project, Patreon is a great way. And if you want to see which kind of video you can expect as specials at Patreon, then you can go on the Patreon site. I have produced one example video free for everyone. You don't need to be a Patreon member. Link is below. Now the potatoes are ready. and they are trained. The recipe says to mash them in a mortar. I don't have a mortar, but I do have a wonderful wood spoon with a wide back, and I use this to mash the potatoes directly in the pot. I now add the melted butter to the 1 kilo of mashed potatoes. Stir this well into the potatoes and bring the new mixture back to boil. Leave the potatoes on the fire a half an hour. Be very careful not to let them burn. The mashed potatoes must therefore be stirred constantly. A big challenge when cooking over the fire is to distribute the heat evenly throughout the pot. The easiest way to achieve this is to turn the pot a quarter of a turn every few minutes. The next step makes the difference between the historical mashed potatoes and the Michelin stars one. If you want to try both, you can divide your potatoes into 2 parts. The small difference in the modern one is now milk is stirred in to make it even creamier. But because I want to limit myself in the historical recipe, I will now continue with this one. For the next step, according to the recipe, you need either a glass of white wine or orange. I adopted the orange. First, I cut a slice out of the middle for later as decoration. Then I squeeze the juice out of the orange. Now I take the pan again and put them back on the top of the pot to save energy. Add some more butter and pour in the fresh squeezed orange juice. I mix the two together carefully. Now is the time to serve. I take small bowls and pour the mashed potatoes evenly into the bowls. Pour the fresh sauce over the top. And sprinkle with a little sugar. Add a piece of orange to decorate the potato pudding. Now comes the best part of every experiment, tasting the dish. I am very curious to see how it tastes. Delicious. It tastes like potato, but in the same time it has a complete different consistency than what I know as mashed potato. It's so much creamier. The butter flavor comes through clearly. The sweetness of the quite exciting with the acidity of the orange gives a very refined taste that I can't compare to anything I ever eat in my life. It's a real shame that this recipe has been lost over time, that is no longer known or hardly produced today. I can recommend you that you try to make it yourself. You can also make it in a normal saucepan. You don't have to prepare it over a fire like I did, the way I made it now. Maybe you could use a little more orange, and you can play around with the sweetness of sugar. Add less or more. You could also add salt if you haven't used salty butter. Dried cherries can store very long, but there are only a few recipes in the 18th century how to dry cherries without sugar, and we're looking on one of them today. Why was drying cherries or the preservation of fruits and food so important in the 18th century? This is very easy explained. The living in the 18th century was totally different like the living today. Today we can go in the grocery store and buy fresh fruits everywhere, every time, the whole year. But back then you haven't a grocery store with all the fruits that we have today. More special, you have your fruits in the summertime, but if you want to eat fruits in the winter, or the ingredients of the fruit there is for a good health, you need to preserve them for the winter. This is the reason why we have so many preservation recipes in these cookbooks. And I want to find out how the people lived back then, and this is why I make so many recipes and preservation now in the summer with the fruits around me, that I can find out how the people eat in the winter, that I can use this what I now preserve for the recipes in the winter. And one thing more, I want to make pemmican very soon. And pemmican was a survival food you have produced back then with sugarless dried berries. And this is why I want to try the cherries without sugar to make this recipe very close like the Native Americans have done this. The recipe today came from the cookbook from Mary Ellens. She was a cooker for the Majesty Queen Anne, and this cookbook came from 767, and I will read the recipe to you before we start. To try cherries without sugar, stone the cherries and set them on the fire without only what liquor comes out of them. Let them boil up 2 or 3 times, shaking them as they boil. Then put them in the earthen pot. The next day scald them, and when they are cold, lay them on a sieve and dry them in the oven, not too hot. Twice heating an oven will try any sorts of cherries. This recipe needs 2 days of work, and this is why I want to start fast. First, I collect so much cherry that I want to try, and I collect the cherries very short before they are ripe, because the shell is a little bit more harder, and I hope it will make a little bit better dry cherries than the soft shell cherries. They are full ripe. Then stoning every single cherry. Now I put my pot on the fire and put in all of my cherries and let them heat up until they are boiling. After the first boiling, I take off the cherry from the fire, let them cool down and put them on fire again to boil them again, and do this twice. Now I take the cooked cherries and put them in the pot to let them cool down for the next day. 1 day later, and I have cooked the cherries again in this pot and let them cool down. And now we go to the next steps. First, I put all the cherries in a sieve, and the moisture should go through in the earthen pot below, and the cherries are held back on top. And then I put everything a cherry on his own place on this big sheets, and I will use a modern oven. In the recipe is written 2 time heats will try every cherry, and I think the meaning is back then they have used earthen oven and they heat them up, and until it started cooling down they put in the cherries, and the time the cherries can't burn anymore, and let them cool down total. And I can't do this because I don't have a earthen oven, and I will do everything so correct I can do like the history correct way. But now I can't do this and use a modern oven, put in the cherries and dry them there by a very low temperature, and do my best and the next time too to go historic correct with every recipe what I do. This is the only solution I can do today, and I need the dry cherries, and because of this I use the modern oven with a low temperature to dry the cherries. I will do this again in the oven. Why? I tell you, but in this time I put all the cherries together. To dry the cherries have taken 3 days in the oven. I have do this in the oven for some hours, then put them out again and leave them for the night, and in the day I have put them again few hours, and in total 3 days, because it was raining like cats and dogs 3 days long outside. Not normal for summer in this region, but it happened what happened. And I used between 120 and 160 degrees. And now I put all cherries together in the sieve, and they are very good shaped cherries, and there are more broken cherry, and I mixed all them together because I want to use them in another recipe very soon. And these cherries, because I cook them over fire, have a smoky taste a little bit, and it's good for another recipe for this YouTube channel. You will see this very soon. But anyway, you can make this recipe at home by yourself. You can put them in the oven, or what you can do also use an air fryer and dry your cherries, and you can store them very long without a fridge. Today I show you how to dry apples easily using a historical method, and then you can store it for a long time. German immigrants in the US know this technique, as it was commonly used in the Rhineland. Welcome on my YouTube channel, where I revive the flavor of the 18th century and want to rediscover the techniques of the 18th century. And yes, before we start we need to clarify why we dry apples. And we have different kinds of apples. Some apples can be stored very long, and they was taken away by ships and for the winter, and a normal earth place, I don't know cellar, earth cellar, was enough to store the apples. But some apples, they go bad very, very fast. And these are very early ripe apples. They are ripe in the end of July, and they can be stored for some weeks. And then they go broke. And this is why we need to work with them very fast. And you can make apple mousse, marmalade, cakes, everything like this, or dry them. And in my home region in Germany, there was a technique, they used it for hundreds of years, maybe by the Roman back then, and this is the drying outside on the air. And this technique I want to show you today. I think German immigrants in the US have used the same technique back then, because they know the technique from his homeland. And yeah, let's start. Now we are in my garden and I make this over this bed. Here are some herbs inside, is everything fine, but I have this garden and a lot of kids playing in this very often. And I need to make a little bit safe for the apples. 2 reasons. The kids can eat them or run against them and they're falling to ground. And the second reason is I think there will come a lot of yellow jackets. And if the kids now, there are yellow jackets, and then we don't go on this place. Because of this, I built this very high to save the apples. It dry a little bit faster if it is built closer to the ground, because there's also a little bit warmer. But it's fine. And I built this here. It's very easy. I make this 4 sticks inside, and then I build 4 to each other. There is like a platform, and then you will see I put the apples on top. This is our basic, and this is very easy. You see, it's moving a lot, but this is no problem. It need to be strong and don't fall down, and this is perfect. And now we can go on to the apple slices. I am already in the next step, and I do this because with a lot of apple you need a lot of time to finish all of these apples. It's very easy. What I have here, I cut the apples, the sides off, and then I take out the stones. You can peel it. I don't do it because the most healthful ingredients are in the peel, and I like it to eat it later with peel. And now I really cut it out. This takes short time. Today we have tools for this, but back then they don't have the tools. This is why I don't use these tools to take out the stones. Yeah. And now I slice them in a 1/4 of an inch thickness. You can make it smaller, and then you get more like chips, very crispy, but not so soft. I like it as a little bit like leather softness of the apple chips. But you can do this by your taste. I take the 1/4 of an inch. And then I take the slices. Okay, this is, I can't use it. And put them here inside. This is just water with citron. Very easy and uncomplicated, because if you dip them inside, they don't get brown. And this, you can do it, you don't need to do this. It's very easy. And then I take a stick and put all the apples on the stick. Like this. Oh, just go. Sometimes apple go broke. The kids can eat it later. Put all the apples on the stick. Like this. I make some more, and then I'll show you how I hang it. And is the stick full, I go to the place what I have built and put on the stick, and then I separate all apple slices that the air can circulate between each of them. This is very important for the drying process, and yes, it takes a little bit time, and I make one stick after the next stick that they can dry in the next days. The apples need to hang there for several days. How many days? I'm not sure. It is different. Some description write about 3 days, other about 10 days. It's only important that it's not raining, and if it's raining 1 or 2 days, I will put it in a house that they can rest there. But then I will leave them in the sun in the hot days and hope they will dry in the next several days. And then I can say you how long it takes, and this way for me this year. 6 days are gone, and you see it's changed a lot in this area. Our apple rings for 6 days are finished, and I take them with me now. But before I do this, I talk a little bit about this area here. I have built it up because I will dry apples now the next, I think, 2 or 3 months. And one row is not enough for me. Because of this, I have make a second row with a lot of apples. It's important to have enough space between. The reason is that the air can really circulate really good through the apple rings, and also they all get sunlight too. There's just a little bit shadow, but not so much if they are too close. So easy and fast is this to dry apples and make apple rings. And now what I do, I need to store them, and for this I use a linen bag, and I fill this up, close it, and hang it up in a dry room for storing it. And step by step we eat this apple rings shortly. What I now do is I go through all of them, put them in the bag, and sometimes they are very thick, and if I push a little bit, it feels more like they are a little bit juicy inside. I put them on the side, and later I will open them very gentle, and then I can see is there some juice inside. And if there are juice inside, I eat them immediately because I don't want to throw them away, but I can't store them. There is 2 ways what you can do with them. Eat them immediately before they are going bad, or dry them longer. And for the 3 or 4 apple ring that is not dried completely, I eat them and have no clue with them, and put new apple rings on my stack. And yes, they will not last a long time by us at home. The kid will eat them, and I will eat them when I go and travel a little bit with my 18th century gear through the woods, and then I need something to eat. The people in the 18th century want to store their food, and they search so many different ways they can. When the German colonists came to America, they get to know many new fruits. One of them was the pumpkin. Pumpkin was also known in Europe and in many countries, but there was also regions where the pumpkin was complete unknown. And so many Germans was very surprised that pumpkin was a stable food. And even people that know pumpkin as food was very surprised that it was a stable food, because in Europe, if you hear pumpkin, they make fun about pumpkin. And the Americans was a pumpkin eater. And pumpkins was very easy to grow, and you can store it for a long time. If you store it right, 7 months are no problem. And today we look on one recipe of a pumpkin today. And I read you a little part about something how a German wrote back to Germany, to Europe, about the pumpkin and their own experience, and I translated to English. On our trip to the West, our guide taught us a new food that we eat all the time. A new fruit, the pumpkin, which we put directly into the coal to cook. And on some days we fill it with fruits and spices. And now we will continue to grow the pumpkin on our own land, as it is said to require very little care and it still produce a good yield. Here you can see how far the pumpkin goes to the daily food of the German immigrants, and it goes very fast also to be a stable food of the daily life. And one special of the pumpkin is you need one seed, put it in the earth and do nothing, and a month later you come back and get 20 or 40 new more pumpkins. And on one pumpkin plant they can survive a family over days, sometimes over weeks. Because of this, it goes very fast, very important for the German settlers. Also later, Germans was very happy in the Civil War to get a pumpkin as alternative to the daily rations that they get as soldiers. I have tried to make a delicious meal of this recipe in my own interpretation. Let's start with the pumpkin. We have to cut open the top of the pumpkin. It's the best to cut as if we have a lid on the end. Now we have the open pumpkin, and from the open pumpkin we take out the complete inner area, the seeds and the flesh inside. Now we have a hollowed out pumpkin and an apple, either peeled and cored, which we cut into small pieces. I peel the apple because otherwise the skin is very tough and it doesn't get so soft. I use it to fill the pumpkin completely. Now let's make a little space in the pumpkin. You will see why in the moment. This little bit here is enough. Now we take our spices. I have a little bit cinnamon and a little salt and mix it together. And we use it to make a good layer on top. That's it enough. This spices up our pumpkin. Now I take a little piece of butter and put it on top. It will melt and a little fat will flow down into it. Take the lid and place the lid back on the pumpkin as it should be. And now we have the pumpkin ready. We are going to have a campfire and either place a stone on the edge or, as I have done here, right in the middle. We place our pumpkin on the stone. Now let the pumpkin cook slowly. It's practically cooked now. Around it is the ember, and what is important now is to turn the pumpkin every 5 minutes by a quarter of a circle, so that this is heated evenly from all sides. I have just realized that the heat from below is not enough to cook the pumpkin through. We have a cold day that is very windy, so we have to put coals on top. This also provides even heat from above. This helps to cook the pumpkin through from above. You can also avoid putting the pumpkin directly in the embers from the start, especially with large pumpkins. Cover it completely from all sides with coal, so that it is cooked evenly. We would like to take this opportunity to thank all supporters who support this project via Patreon. You make it possible for us to keep producing videos like this and for the project to keep growing. Thank you. Now we tell that the pumpkin is ready. We simply take a piece of wood or knife and piece it into the pumpkin's once. If it is as soft as butter without any major obstructions, there's everything cooked through. Now we can remove it from the fire. Then we took a look inside. There is a bit of ash in there. This is no problem. We just take it out and then we can use the pumpkin. Now we grab the pumpkin. This is a Lion Kitchen troll and I take all the soft parts out of the pumpkin. Starts with the apples. Then you can really just scrape out the nice pumpkin flesh. Everything here now smells unbelievably of cinnamon. There is a small area on the top that is not full cooked. I leave this in the pumpkin. That can happen sometimes. The same goes for a little burn area, which is also left in the pumpkin. But we take everything else out and we have our pumpkin and apple mixture. We mix it again very well, that the spices is distributed everywhere. The last step is the dressing. We do this by taking out a little bit here. A few pieces of apple and a bit of pumpkin. That should be enough. Today we have a taster, my wife. She is about to tell us how much she like or dislike this food. The rest is for my children, because there's apple inside and they really want to eat it because it contains apples. Then we add a little bit butter again. Butter is a simple fat and fat is an incredible good flavor enhancer. We add a little bit butter on the top here. This can now melt away and then we add a little bit cinnamon. We still have a little bit left over. We sprinkle this on the top again. The special thing about this cinnamon, it is mixed with a little bit of salt. This little bit of salt gives the taste of cinnamon more power. So now we have finished the dish. I let my taster try this food now.
It smells very good. It smells a little bit like Christmas because of the cinnamon. Yes. The pumpkin is quite sweet and very soft. And the apple pieces are a little crunchy. No, solid may be the right word. A little sourish. Tastes very delicious. And if you still have some, you can sprinkle a little sugar on top at the end. It brings out the flavor even a little more, especially from the pumpkin.
Hi, I'm Josua and today I'm going to make a dessert based on a recipe from the 18th century. And the recipe is very simple. In my research over the last few weeks, I have discovered that strawberries were not as popular and well known as many other fruits in the 17th and 18th century. In many cookbooks from this time, there's not even a mention of strawberries in these cookbooks. And at the same time, there were very often double-digit numbers of recipes of gooseberries, apricots, and raspberries. Other types of fruits were also found everywhere, such like cherries and apples, but there was often no trace of strawberries. Of course, I read the recipe in which strawberries appeared with all of my attention. I found one of them in the cookbook The Practice of Cookery by Miss Fraser. This is the recipe we were going to make today. First I will read the recipe. To make strawberries, raspberries or currant cream. Take the fruit new pulled and an equal weight of sugar and fruit. Clarify the sugar and put in the fruit. Let them boil until the sugar has penetrated into the heart of the fruit. And when it cold, take 2 or 3 spoonfuls of it. Whisk it up with a mutchkin of thick cream. Then take the whole left of berries and mix it in 2 or 3 spoonfuls more of them in among a rigged cream. You may either put it into a oven or glasses. If you have any of these fruits preserved, you may do them in the same way. I am going to make a small amount to try. I start by making the fire first, so that we have a nice fire right away. Now I collect the strawberries from my garden and prepare them. I cut the strawberries very small. I think that tastes better in the dish. Now I crush some sugar, so that I have the strawberries and sugar in the same weight ratio. I have only this small container with me today, and I will work with this. I put everything in there and slowly boil the strawberries with the sugar, until the sugar has melted and the strawberries are soft. Then cool it down. Now is the cream's turn. I take this and put it into my container. Add 2 spoonfuls of the strawberry juice from the strawberries we just have prepared. The cream needs to be whipped. To really get the cream to set quickly, whipping is more helpful than simply stirring. It's go much faster with this wooden stick. Have you ever worked with such an authentic whisk from the 18th century? If not, why not? Write it down in the comments. Now we have the cream and the strawberries. Now carefully fold the strawberries into the cream. I make it directly in this glass. What a sight, how beautiful this looks. I will try it now. But before, if you want to support me and making more videos about recipes of the 18th century, then share this video with your friends so that more people find out about this YouTube channel. Now I have the honor to taste this recipe and it looks so beautiful. Let's try it out. On the spoon, cream and strawberry. Oh. This is really, really good. Oh. It's like ice cream, but not so cold. Italian ice cream. Beautiful. I think for the 18th century, every guest you had, you can surprise with this. It is a really, really, really good dish. I'm surprising to find something so good in a recipe book of the 18th century. And if you have the chance, try it out. It's also today, I think, a good dish to bring it as dessert on the table. You could also make this recipe with pickled strawberries, and you wouldn't need fresh strawberries. The summer is here and this is the start of the sweet fruits. One of them is a raspberry, a fruit that I love, and this is why I have over 50 plants of the raspberry. And with so much raspberry, I have a lot of fruits, and this is why I searched some recipe for raspberries. And I have 2 videos already finished that you can do with raspberries. One is a strawberry marmalade. You can put raspberries instead of strawberries. And the other recipe is a cherry pie. You can take raspberries and leave out the cherries. And both are very delicious. And this is why I want to search a new recipe. And I have around 20 cookbooks in English and German from America, England, Germany and Austria. And in this time I found 2 interesting recipes, and one of them we want to do today. And this recipe, I found exact the same recipe with the same words in 2 different books. This one is the Universal Cook and the other is the Lady Assistants. This book is from 775 and this is from 792. And I think they wrote this recipe just from them, but maybe they have this from another cookbook before. And yes, I open this and read it to you. A raspberry tart with cream. Lay some thin puff paste in a patty pan. Put in some raspberries and throw over them some very fine sugar. Put on the lid and bake it. Then cut it open and put in half a pint of cream, the yolk of 2 or 3 eggs, well beaten, and a little sugar. Let it stand to cool before you send it to table. This recipe sounds very easy, but it's not so easy how it sounds, because you need to know special things about the English type of cooking. And in my research I found some description how they make the cream in other recipes, and this is important to know, because if you don't know it, you will lose your cream on top. I will show it to you today, and let's start with the first part of this tart. First I take the puff paste and lay it out even in my pan, and it is important that everywhere is this puff paste, and what is over the corner of the pan I cut off very gentle. Now the raspberries come in the tart, and it's my own raspberries and I don't weigh them today. I think this is a little bit under 1 pound of raspberries what I do in this tart. And I lay them even in the dough and push them a little bit down that there's no air between the many raspberries, and this is laying a little bit deeper for the lid that I put on top later. After the raspberries coming the sugar, and I using grounded sugar. The grounded sugar is very even and soft, and the sweetness is very even later in this tart. It's better than normal sugar. I make a thick layer of grounded sugar on top, and then the last step to make a lid on top, and this is puff paste again. How to make puff paste, I show this later in this year in another video. In the moment my garden is too warm, it's summer, and if I do this outside it don't function because it need to be cooler outside to do this outside. And I cut off around the puff paste and make my new pattern on the corners. I don't know why I use this technique, I just want to try something new. And then it's important to make vending holes in the pie. The vending holes helping the steam from the water come out when it is baked, and you can do 3, 4, 5 vending holes. I have just decided to make 4 of them because I don't know why. It is like fine with 3 or 5 also. For the baking I use a Dutch oven because I don't have an earthen oven until now, and it is very smooth with a Dutch oven. For the Dutch oven, first I put coals under the Dutch oven, put the Dutch oven over it. Put in an iron and the tart on top, and then I lay the lid of the pot on top, and then I make more coals on top than under the pot. On the top I have the double amount of coals or more than under the Dutch oven. This is very important. If you have too much coals under the oven and too less on top, you're burning the ground of your cake, tart, pie, whatever you're doing in the pot. Is very important to have more from the top, and then you have an even baking the whole time. And without preheating the pot, it was needing about 45 minutes. If I preheat the oven, I think it will go between 20 and 30 minutes to have this dish finished. After it's finished, I put it out and let it cool down and go to the next steps. Now I open the lid of the tart and I make it a little bit different. Now this is written in the recipe, and the recipe is open it and let it cool down. It is already cooled down, and the dough, the puff paste, is very tasteful, and this is why I want to use them later too, and not how it is written in the recipe. Now I can open this and have everything here together. If you enjoyed this video until this point, or you want to see more cooking of the 18th, 19th century, or you may be interested how the Germans lived back then in the 18th, 19th century when they immigrated in the States, then this is now the best time to subscribe this YouTube channel. And don't miss the next video, there will come a lot. I have hundreds of ideas and I want to make more and more videos about these topics. And now let's go back to the tart and let's go on and let's see how it tastes when the tart is finished. Now we came to the big difference from the recipe. And in the recipe it's very easy. Put these 3 ingredients together. 3 egg yolks, a little bit sugar, a little bit cream, and then put it in the hot dough, in the hot tart. This is how I read this, but I think they're meaning it different. How I think they're meaning it different? It is very easy. In many other recipes they use the same 3 ingredients a little bit different. Also in the modern English kitchen they're using these 3 ingredients, but they're using this different. And I will show you today how the English cookery used these 3 until today to make a beautiful tart. To make this beautiful English cream, it's important to work separately. First, I separate the egg yolk from the egg whites and collect all egg yolks in his own little pot. To the 3 egg yolks I put a lot of sugar and then I stir them with a whisk, very patientful, until there is a lot of air bubbles in the egg. The second step needs a little bit longer and is beating the cream until the cream is hard and stay. And then I put carefully the egg yolks into the cream and carefully put them under the cream. And then I have the finished English cream. Now I go back to the tart and open the lid, put in the cream and make it even with a spoon, and then I put the lid on top again and the tart is finished. To make the puff paste on the top is my own interpretation, but I think it looks more beautiful and the puff taste is delicious. now the most beautiful part by cooking, and this is to tasting the dish. I cut it off and take a little bit from everything, from the cream, from the raspberries and from the dough, all together, and try it. It is very, very good because the sourness of the strawberries came through, a little bit light and sweet cream, but not too sweet. The only sugar was in the egg yolk, and this is really a nice dish. And the dough, it's really delicious, but this is a normal puff paste, not sweetened. That's a really, really nice dish, and I can recommend. Try it out at home. It is very easy to do and very tasteful, and you can surprise your guest with a dish from the 18th century. To make a sherry wine in 10 days sounds incredible. Especially everyone who make a wine before knows the yeast need a long time to produce from sugar into alcohol. And our ancestors have the same question like we today, how to produce a wine in 10 days, and they found some solution. And on one of them we're looking today. And today I have bring with me a very interesting book, The Gentleman's Opinion and Tradesman's Delight from 735. And this book is very interesting because there is a lot of different topics inside. One of them is how to make colors, and then how to color your fabric. The other topic is how to make medicine at home with the plants you have and how to use them right. And the other recipe inside is how to make a sherry wine in 10 days. And in this recipe we're looking today, I will read it to you. To make a sherry wine, take a quart of brandy, 1 pound of Morilla cherries and 3/4 of a pound of double refined sugar. Put it into bottles and set it on a hot bed for 9 or 10 days uncorked. Put it down with a bladder that it may work. When you take it from the hot bed, cork it down and set it on a cellar. The longer you keep it, the better. I have decided to make a third of the amount that is written in the recipe. I have here 1/3 of a quart brandy, then I have a 1/4 English pound of sugar and a 1/3 of English pound of Morilla cherries. These Morilla cherries are sour cherries, and there is living, or the tree is very close to my garden, and I have harvested them. The recipe is very easy, but I change a little bit. First I take my cherries and put them in the jar. And then, this is what I change, take my spoon and take the back side of the spoon and squeeze a little bit the cherries. This releases the cherry juice and make easier to commit with everything else what I put inside. Then I put the sugar inside, and there is the other thing that is written in the recipe what I don't do today. But it has no influence on the taste on the end. The recipe writes, make a bladder on top and close the vessel like this. And I have used a bladder in the recipe of strawberry marmalade on my YouTube channel. You can see this video. And we Germans have for a long time another technique to protect our ingredients inside from the air outside. We produce pots with a hole around, and this hole have a lid that fits exactly inside. Now we put water on the side of our vessel. And the water is like a barrier, and nothing can come outside in the vessel. But if the fermenting starts inside the vessel, the pressure inside can go out of the vessel, but nothing can go inside. And this is how I use it today. And now I can put this away for 10 days, but I need to keep an eye on the water level. And if it is sinking, I need to put more water inside in the next 10 days. 10 days ago it was a really strong raining, and I remember how I was fighting to make this video, to make this sherry wine, because this was the end of the cherries. In the same time it was raining, but it was important to make the work very soon, because if I wait 1 or 2 weeks the cherries were gone. And because of this I set it on, and today I'm fighting against the heat. We are nearly 100 degrees, and yeah, it is very warm. And we go on the sherry wine now. In the first step, I take off the lid, and you see all the water here. This is the water barrier, and the problem is there is dirt inside, and bacteria, everything, and we don't want to drink this. And it is not easy to take everything out without this water. Because of this, I try this whole water out with this kitchen line towel, and then we have this dried and safe. In the next step, I take my sieve, and in the sieve I put a kitchen line towel, and this is because I want to take out the smallest part of this sherry wine to have only the liquor. And this kitchen line towel is better than the sieve alone. And I put everything in and push only a little bit out of the kitchen line towel, and then I have catched all liquor, and I can take a funnel and my bottle and put everything in very easily. Now are two ways what I can do with the sherries. One thing is to eat them. There are little stones inside. You can put them out. They're very clean. And you have a little taste like a brandy. Maybe this fits good to a dish or dessert. Yeah, it's just brandy with a little bit cherry. Or throw them away. A 10 days old sherry wine. Oh, I'm excited to test it now, and let's surprise how it tastes. Wow! I'm really surprised. I was thinking I get a drink with a brandy taste and a little bit cherry taste, and no. If I don't know there's brandy inside, I would think this is a sherry wine. For real. It tastes a little bit like sherry, it's very sweet, and you have a little bit sharpness on the end, where you can guess there's something like brandy inside. But if I don't know it, I don't will know it. It's 1,000 times better like the sherries I tasted a few moments ago. It tastes really like a sherry wine. I'm so surprised what people have invented 250 years ago just to have a wine very fast. And this is really, really, really good stuff. Yes. I'm really, really wordless about this. I would say this is more like a dessert wine to drink after a meal or to a dessert, but yeah, it's really, really good. In the moment, I do a sherry wine with the historical methods, everything like this, and they're standing for some weeks now, and it take a much more and longer time than this sherry wine in 10 days. And I will keep some of them to test each of them together, but this video will come in a few weeks or a month when the wine is finished. But this is really good. Today I am making a fruit pudding, which is perhaps the simplest recipe in the world with a fantastic taste on the end. Every hiker and traveler was a long time on the road before our modern technology made it possible to travel quickly. At the same time, you had to take the food you need with you for the journey and prepare it in the evening. So it was very boring to eat the same food every day, and it was always a nice change to find fresh food on the road. Today we make something special. We're using fresh fruits, berries and apples, which I put in the meal. The fruit pudding is very simple, though I take some flour and mix it with water and make a dough. It should still be sticky on the end. I start with the apple. I have already removed the seeds and warp it in the dough. Then I put flour on the outside of the bowl so that it doesn't sticky so much, which make it easier to work with. The same way with the berries. So I have 2 balls of dough. The smaller one is filled with berries and the larger one with apple. You can use any fruit for this pudding. However, only the edible parts should be used. For example, I remove the stone from the peach and the plum beforehand. Now I use kitchen line cloths that I first put in boiling water. Such cloths used to be standard in every kitchen. They are simple square-lined cloths. While the clothes are soaking, you can subscribe the channel if you want to see more videos like this with historical recipes or historical outdoor tips. After a few minutes, I take the wet clothes out of the pot and spread them out. Because we are out in the nature, I just do it on the block of wood. I then sprinkle them with flour. The flour helps to close the open pores of the clothes and prevent the pudding from baking in the clothes later. I am always very generous with this, and I take the balls, wrap them in the line cloths and tie them well. Now the patience part begins. The balls are placed in the line cloths in hot water for about 1 hour and cooked. But then comes the best part, unwrapping and enjoying. The surprising thing is the taste, where the dough gives off almost no flavor and has become a bit thick. The fruit unfolds its full flavor and makes it a delicious, varied meal. And it is very individual depending on the fruit you use. Incredible tender and tasty pancakes based on a recipe from 775. In order to get the original taste, I took the trouble to cook them so accurate as possible, both from the ingredients as well as over the fire as it was usual at this time. What I try on this YouTube channel is to find out how the German immigrants have lived in the United States when they immigrated back then in the 18th and 19th century. And one big part is the daily food. And the daily food need to be easy and cheap. And one thing they have eaten a lot is pancakes. Pancakes is famous back then, but also until today. It's a very easy recipe. And in my search, I found in the cookbooks several different recipes. And in this cookbook, I found 5 different. And one of them is very interesting because this is different what we have today. In the normal recipe today we use milk, but this recipe say use cream. And this makes it so different. It makes more creamy, more soft, more tender. And I will show it to you and it's very interesting. I read this from the Lady's Assistant. It's a cookbook from London. This means also we need a London pint and I read it to you. New England Pancakes. A pint of cream, 5 spoonfuls of flour, 7 eggs, leave out 3 whites, a little salt, fry them thin in fresh butter, lay 7 or 8 in a dish, throw sugar and cinnamon between. I have made this recipe very simple. Here are the ingredients: 1 pint of cream, 7 eggs, some flour and some salt. First I put 3 egg yolks and 4 whole eggs in a bowl. I stir this eggs well. Then I add a little salt and the cream. This is mixed well. Then I add 5 generous spoonfuls of flour. As I don't know the exact size of the spoon, I just use a normal tablespoon. Then it has to be mixed really well, so that there are no lumps in the flour left. I stir it very well for about 20 minutes. This made the mixture very even, and I add a lot of air into the mixture, which will also make it a bit more fluffy later. Last time I always used a ladle to transfer the dough into the pan. But to make it easier this time, I decided to pour the dough into a jug, which makes it much easier for me, as I can pour it much more precisely into the pan. Now I can start frying straight away. What I have learned from the last time, should be very generous with the butter. Better too much than too little, to avoid burning. And when we use butter, this time it means unsalted butter. In the recipe is written fresh butter, and fresh butter is every time unsalted butter. Normal butter in the recipes back then was every time salted butter. It has something to do with the preservation and production of the butter. And fresh butter or unsalted butter have not stayed good for a long time. Now I fry my pancakes and always layer them with a little sugar and cinnamon between. In the moment I make the layers, I try to make the less I can butter out of the pan, that I can still hold it in the pan and this got not too fatty. We in Germany say learning by doing. In the doing process you learn the most. And this time, the third time I have made these pancakes, I have learned something new. I have tried to make this as thin I can do in the pan. And every second or third go broke in the time I make them in the pan. And now I have decided to make it a little bit thicker. I have made the double amount of dough in the pan, and until this time it stopped to broke and I can turn them over and I have really good pancakes. And yeah, I can recommend maybe do a little bit more dough in the pan than I do in the beginning. And now I will try this. Ah, this is a beautiful taste. They are really, really creamy pancakes, more creamy than what I know normally. And the same time, the taste of the butter give it a really good taste. And then with the thyme and sugar, it's not too sweet, but it's really delicious. And I can imagine that some people really celebrate to eat this. And it is a really good pancakes. I eat a little bit more and we see us in the next video. See you soon.